Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Season 1 finale of BAN-KAST, Episode 13, covering Bleach 1,000 Year Blood War, Episode 13. And today we have a very special guest with me for the finale, presenting MrTommo!
Hello, thank you very much for having me. This is extremely exciting.
I know, right? Yeah, I know I started this off by saying that, like, you know, I'm going to have a bunch of different special guests for BAN-KAST. Season 1 ended, I've had 2 so far, but there'll be more special guests in Season 2, trust me, or Core 2. Here's the thing, have you ever heard of the term core before, like, recently?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, nope. Me neither, me neither.
I was watching, I think it was your last episode, and you said that you didn't know what a core was, and I was like, thank you. I've never heard this term in my life, and now it's popping up everywhere.
Apparently, from what I've understood, that was the correct term that was always used in Japan, but whenever stuff was translated over, like, you know, the next core of My Hero Academia or whatever, they would just translate core to part or season.
Okay.
Because I guess more Western audiences are used to, like, seasons of shows and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been calling it a season, but I feel like a pretender because everyone's calling it a core.
Yeah. I honestly think it's just one of those buzzwords that people like to use that just, like, add a little bit of flair to it, you know. It does sound cool, I gotta admit, but, you know, okay. But yeah, so the first core is over here, and the next one will begin July of this year, 2023. I actually heard July 15th, which is Ichigo's birthday, I think, so...
That would make a lot of sense.
That would make a lot of sense, yeah. And, I mean, in terms of, like, a place to end it out, I mean, this is pretty much the perfect place. This was, like, the first high moment of the arc where I think... Because this was right before the break, right? Back in the day. Like, there was a month long...
Yeah, very close.
Yeah, very close to this. So, perfect place to end it. How did you feel about Core 1, Mr.
I loved it. I think it's probably the blanket response. I think it's amazing. I mean, I've said this before in my... reviews and stuff. I think the first part of the 1,000 Year Blood War arc was always going to be pretty difficult for them to adapt because so much is going on. Like the pacing of Bleach has never been the way it is in the start of this arc. It's extraordinarily quick. And obviously that's done by design because, you know, it's meant to be like an almost blitz by the Vandenreich. You're supposed to get that the whole way through. But I think for the most part, they kind of nailed it. I'm really happy with almost everything we get in here. Tentpole fights like Yamamoto versus Royd absolutely blew my mind. I mean, my only slight quibble would be that I think some of it is moving too fast. But other than that, I'm extremely happy. I can't believe how stunning it looks every week as well.
We were talking about that earlier, like the pacing of it, and it does look stunning. It looks amazing, and it really does give the impression of like, hey, Quincy's are attacking. It's a quick fight. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they're just dominating. And we were addressing that earlier though, with just like the pacing of how the first generation Bleach anime was. I guess we'll call it that now, Bleach Gen 1 or whatever. Yeah. You know, that you would cram so many chapters into one episode, and a lot of times, like I remember like the fake Karakura fights, you know, with the lieutenants and stuff. Like it wouldn't just be Shuhei versus Findor. It would be Shuhei versus Findor, but like a lot of filler in the fight with them like running around the town and everything like that. That's how it's always been. So now it's like we don't have any of that. I mean, with Yamamoto and Yuha or Royd, we had a couple of extra scenes, but even those moved by really fast.
Absolutely, yeah. And the ironic thing is as well is that if there's any arc in the series that people want extra scenes for, it's absolutely this one.
It's this one.
Yeah, so I don't think anyone is going to be upset at all about either filler for existing fights or, more importantly, brand new fights, which I'm hoping we will get considerably more of moving on down the cores.
As you mentioned that, I did see an interview with Kubo the other day where he was talking about Core 2, and he mentioned that in this next up part, there's going to be a fight that was just not included in the manga, like at all. I think it was like alluded to, or it was off-screened or whatever. Which fight do you think that is?
Yeah, that's really, really exciting. I mean, that's the sort of thing I want to be hearing from Kubo.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. And I'm more worried about the ending. Like, okay, how are we going to handle the ending of this, man? Like, what are we doing with that, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the funny thing about that as well is that what we've just had, what made up Core 1, is effectively the part of this arc that everybody loves. It's really from part 2 where it gets a bit more divisive.
Yeah, so we'll see. Walking on eggshells here.
But going back to what you said about what fight do I think it is, I have a few in mind. I mean, Kubo mentioned a little while back as well that he had a brand new scene involving the Bambis. But
Yes.
I don't reckon it's them, because from the way he speaks, it sounds like it's a 1v1 thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what immediately came to mind for me is we would actually get to see Shinji versus Basby. That happens
Yes.
entirely off screen.
Oh my God, yes,
Um,
that's the one I'm hoping it is, because Shinji does disappointingly little, next to
Absolutely.
nothing, pretty much in this
Yep.
entire arc, like the whole thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And as far as Sternritter go, Basby obviously does loads, so I would happily have another Sternritter take his place, but I would take it to get a fight for Shinji.
I think honestly that would also help Basby's character out a lot, because he is definitely one of the more focused on Sternritter, and if we had another fight in between his fights with, like, well, he fights against, Toshiro coming up, and then the fight with Shinji, if that's added, and then we can lead into the stuff later on with Hashwolf and everything, that'll add his character. I think that'll work for both of them, honestly.
I would love that, yeah.
But yeah,
Yep.
let's go with the Shinji. Definitely more Shinji love. But anyway, yeah, so this will be episode 13, The Blade is Me. We actually get the title at the very end, so I have to go all the way back to the beginning now. But I love this setup I have here, where I can actually scroll through the whole damn episode. All right, so we start off right where we left off last time. Ikumi just kind of leaves, which is weird. It's like a weird scene where he's like, okay, I'm going, and then just Ikumi's not in the shot anymore, so I guess she just left. But Ichigo's there, and he's like, all right, I'm heading back. I'm serious. I've learned about my past. I'm good to go. And Ishin's like, hey, Ichigo, how are you going to go back? Because I don't know how to do that. So...
I always loved that, because it felt very meta of Kubo, because I remember the previous chapter ending with this like triumphant Ichigo being like, I'm gonna go now. And although it was great stuff, I remember people being like, how is he getting back? And then Kubo actually addressing that via Ishin was so funny. It was just like, he just completely realized and understood that the situation, what Ichigo said then, although badass, was nonsensical.
Doesn't make any sense. I mean, the logistics of it, honestly, I don't know if Kubo kind of wrote himself into like, all right, we need Ichigo to go back to the world of the living. But he's in the Soul Palace in a Soul Reaper form, so we need to get him back to the world of the living, back in his human body, and then back to the Soul Palace. It's like, how are we going to do all this? So he basically creates a new technique, and so Mara shows up here, and she just pops into existence. She's like, oh, great, everything worked out. Okay, come with me. And then, boom, we're back at the Ho-Oden. And I don't think Nimaya actually says the name of the technique in the anime, but in the manga, it's like the Chokaimon or something. It's the Super Senkai Gate. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they actually cut basically all of the explanation of the Chokaimon. Like, it's completely gone.
Yeah.
So...
It's essentially I mean, let's be honest here. It's basically a Deus Ex Machina version of the Senkaimon. It's honestly, okay, I view it as an advanced Kido that only the Soul Reaper Guard, the Squad Zero, is capable of using, basically.
A part of me wonders why they even bother with the
pillar
faff of the Tenshuren when
the Tenshuren, when you could just warp anywhere you want. I don't know. It's a little bit of the flair, the prestige of it.
It is, yeah.
Tomo, if you could travel around in a giant Roman Palestine or whatever, like, wouldn't you? I mean, come on.
I would do that, yeah.
I mean, yeah, okay. It's like they could teleport, but they have a really sick convertible also they can use, you know? All right.
It doesn't go back up.
It doesn't go back up, but it looks damn cool coming down, you know? So, yeah, we move pretty quickly through this. You know, there's no explanation. Ichigo pops back into the Ho-Den, and Nimai is there, and he's just like, all right, you should be able to do it now. Everything's awesome. You know, you learned about your past. You're a Quincy. You're a Shinigami. All that jazz. A little bit of Hollow mixed in there. You should be okay. And then he's like, go and do it, Ichigo. And then Ichigo just turns around, and all of the Yasuuchi are now naked, I realize. That's an interesting shot. But they all just kind of bow down and accept him as like a true Shinigami, I suppose. And here's the thing I realized as I was watching this. Do you think there was any major significance to the one that Ichigo selects?
That's a great question. I'm not entirely sure. It's actually interesting because this scene does play out ever so slightly differently here. You actually get to, compared to the original chapter, you actually get to see him kind of walking through them all, which makes it look more like he has this kind of almost like narrow-minded determination that he knows who he is going towards. Whether there is any significance or not, I really don't know. It always kind of felt to me like them kind of turning black as he walks past is like you say, them accepting him, acknowledging him as finally a true Shinigami. But obviously the one he goes to unravels to reveal a white core, essentially. So whether he can just tell that one in particular is the one that has the hollow mask and all that sort of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, because they're all supposed to be blank slates kind of thing. You know, that was like the whole point. Yeah. Because Ichigo, like in the manga, the way it is, I think Ichigo just kind of turns around and he just holds out his hand and he's just like, "You're the one." Like it's like already right there next to him. This one had a little bit more of a gravitas to it, which I appreciated.
I love that.
I really love that.
It's such an awesome little change.
Absolutely. So he touches one of the Asauchi and it turns into his true Zanpakuto spirit, which takes the form of white. It takes the form of the hollow, a little bit mixed up, a little bit like kind of a combination of White's hollow mask, Ichigo's original hollow mask. He looks pretty cool. He looks demonic, honestly. Like, but Ichigo accepts like this is what my power is now. You know?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's that moment of complete, like you say, acceptance for Ichigo. It's his character going full circle. He's kind of gone through everything, the absolute torment that his mental state was in before everything but the rain, and now you see this totally calm, collected. He's so in command, he doesn't even have to fight them.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
So awesome.
And it's such a contrast to how the Inner Hollow behaved, you know, Soul Society and a Rancor arc, where it was more viewed as like this evil entity spirit, like trying to possess his body. And I remember there was actually one scene that was really blood-curdling to me, like to this day even, at the beginning of the Arankar arc. I think this was right before the battle with Yami and Yukiura. Ichigo's just in his room, just kind of like laying in his bed, like kind of thinking about, what am I going to do about this Inner Hollow thing? And the Inner Hollow begins to speak to Ichigo, like, one of these days I'm going to drag you off that horse and I'm going to pound your skull into the ground and take over your body. Like, that's fucking terrifying to just have a voice in your head that's saying that. But realizing that it's not some kind of evil entity, it is his power. He just doesn't understand it yet. And it's that acceptance of that power that makes Ichigo complete. And now here we are. So
it's awesome.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
I feel like Ichigo's journey has always been viewed as being very turbulent, very up and down. A lot of people might say it doesn't make a lot of sense, but when you get to this point, it actually does.
I think it makes
all
perfect
comes
sense.
Together.
Yeah.
It all totally comes together when you get this Blade is Me segment, which is why it's so important, which is why it's such a good place to end the season. Because it finally all totally makes sense. Like you say, at that point in the Arankar arc, his Inner Hollow is being painted as a villain, like through and through. There's no
Ichigo even has to like fight him, like physically subjugate him in order to get the powers, which is like an opposite of what he should be doing. You know, it should be like a working in tandem kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But it all kind of comes to a head here, and I think it is really. Honestly, some of Kubo's best stuff, this Blade is Me stuff.
Oh, perfectly, Honestly, and this is really the completion of Ichigo's, like, character development. Like, he has a few other scenes that are pretty cool when he shows up and starts saving everybody, but, like, this is, like, the major character development stuff, which might be the reason why everyone loves this first part of the arc so much. So, Nemaya's like, wow, okay, you're good. Come on up, and I will personally reforge your Zanpakuto for you. So, get the titles here, really cool stuff. Which, by the way, we were talking about spoilers earlier. I mean, the opening credits themselves kind of spoil the ending of Core 1 right here. I'm assuming we're going to get a new opening when Core 2 starts. So how did you feel about Scar? I liked it. I thought it was pretty
I hope we get a new opening because I love seeing all the different, the visuals and stuff like that. But I absolutely adore this opening. Maybe it's recency bias, but it's up there with one of my favorites. I love the song. I love the visuals. I think using this shade of pink everywhere is so bold, but it's fantastic. It's very Bleach. Like, it combines the earliest days of Bleach's visuals where they did use those popping bold colors so often, but makes it feel more serious. Because obviously the Thousand Year Blood War is the darkest arc of Bleach. There's no question about it.
Easily. And, like, I it's not one of my favorites. It's definitely grown on me since it started, but I will agree with you. It's Bleach through and through, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very kind of basic. I mentioned this in one of my early reviews. What I want from the visuals is to see the captains fighting the Sternritter, and that's what we get. And I was so happy when I saw that.
You're a simple kind of Bleach-loving man. You just want to see the Gote 13 fight the Sternritters. That's nothing more, nothing less. That's all you want. All right. So, just the interstitch. Okay, so we start off the episode by actually looking around the Seirete at the 4 captains that have had their Bankai stolen. So, Toshiro, Soifone, Komamura, and Byakuya, well, not Byakuya, I guess, because he's still in the Soul Palace, but the three of them that had their Bankai stolen. So first we see the 10th Squad barracks where we see, oh, they actually included his name here. I'm actually surprised. They, Kubo revealed this dude's name, but it was actually in between the chapters in the tankobons. I don't think it's revealed in the actual chapter. So they included it here. So let's go. Shutetsu Naga Kiso. And he's just
it's a really nice little detail.
Yeah, little thing. So they take the stuff that Kubo provides them and all that kind of crap. So yeah, he's just basically teaching the 200 Shinigami that didn't die horribly in the first event. There can't be a lot of them left after that. You know what I mean?
That's all of them in that picture.
That's all of them. That's the rest of the Shinigami. Look at that. Look in the third row. There looks like a little kid that's like training. It's like, oh god, they don't have a lot of other fighting forces left. So this is where Toshiro is beginning to train. He realizes, hey, I lost my Bankai. I can't fret over it. I shouldn't worry about it. I need to train in the basics again. And that's actually not really a bad strategy, because I've actually heard a thing where when you're an expert at something, whether it be a musical instrument or a martial art or, you know, like anything really, like a sport, if you don't train in the fundamentals every once in a while, that can actually lead to a detriment. So, I mean, his idea is like, look, I'm just going to practice Zangetsu as much as I can. And we later learn that Toshiro's Zanpakuto, his Shikai and Bankai really aren't that different, just the amount of ice he can make. And we're going to see some really clever stuff with his Shikai later. But this is a little bit of a humble moment for Toshiro. I like this.
I really like it as well, yeah. I mean, I'm not the world's biggest Hitsugaya fan. I don't hate him or anything
Gasp!
like that, but yeah. But I do like this. Like you say, it's very humbling. And I think it is a real, just a moment where Hitsugaya kind of shows you who he really is. Like, he's able to kind of put it behind him, even though I think it's actually quite understated, to be honest, how tragic the loss of their Bankai actually is, because it's a huge deal. Like, a piece of their soul has been ripped away. But I honestly appreciate this from him, and you can tell like even Nagakiso is like totally taken aback to see him there.
Yeah.
But
he's like, oh, come on in, Captain. All right. He's probably happy. He's like, ooh, I get to train the captain today. All right.
If I was in that squad and I saw that, it would give me a lot of respect for him.
Oh, yeah. Also, yeah, the huge moral boost that it probably gives to see all these other, like, low-level Shinigami training with their captain, like, he's doing the same stuff. That probably gives them a little bit of a motivation to, like, oh, yeah, we're going to wreck these Quincy's. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, there's really only two options here. Hitsugai could sit around and figure out, like, okay, in the next battle, I got to figure out a way to get my Bankai back. But it's like, he realizes that might not happen. I might not even fight against Kangdu again. He might not even, like, you know, he might avoid me or something. So I got to do something else in order to increase my skills, whatever it may be, even a little bit, you know?
Yeah, as far as he's concerned, he may never see Daigoren Hyorimaru again, which again must be a terrifying thought.
Oh, absolutely.
He pushes it down. I do think that's really cool.
Also considering because we actually got, with the second movie, Diamond Dust Rebellion, there was like a chapter that was released like -15 where we learned a lot about Toshiro's backstory with Daigoren Hyorimaru. And so his story with his Zanpakuto spirit is probably one of the more that's like expanded in the manga. So even more rough for him. Let's see, who's next? Oh, we have Shuhei and Kensei here. This is a fun scene. I like that they included this. So Kensei mentions, you know, I haven't had my Bankai stolen this time, which by the way, what's your opinion on that? Because they're, you know, visors. Would they even have could they have gotten their Bankai stolen? I don't even think it would have been feasible for the Quincy's to do that.
Probably not. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought so, because I mean, based on everything we've learned from Everything But the Rain, their Shinigami and Hollow Ryatsu would now be perfectly fused together in some kind of equal balance. So if the Quincy take the Bankai, they will also take at least a bit of that Ryatsu with them, and that will probably. And I think the
Quincy's were probably also aware of, like, because they could sense Hollow Ryatsu and shit. They're probably aware of which, you know, captains are, you know, visors and stuff like that. So they were like, okay, let's not even try to do that with Kensei or not Shuhei, Shinji and Rose. So yeah. But anyway, yeah, he's like, hey, Shuhei, you got a Master Bankai right here, right now. And Shuhei's like, I can do that? Can I do that? Yeah. All right, I guess. And then Mashiro shows up. Haven't seen her in a while. By the way, a little bit of a side note before we continue with this. There's been scenes in the manga up until this point with the other visors in the world of living doing some stuff, like Hiyori and Hachi. That was all cut out of this first part. So, I mean, what are you going to do? They really don't do much at this point in the arc, but, you know, we do, you know, touch base with them a little bit, and all that's just kind of cut out. So, what are you
it's a shame to have that removed, because the visors do, like, barely anything anyway. I mean, like you said, this is the first time we see Mashiro in this arc. It would also be the last.
Yeah, well, maybe not in
So,
the anime, I'm hoping.
I
Oh
hope
my god,
not,
that
yeah.
is right. Oh my god, she does just disappear, doesn't she?
She does. Yeah, I'm really, really hoping they... Because
What
there's...
the hell?
Yeah.
Her being... Okay, Mashiro and Kensei fighting against Maste Masculine would have been the funniest. That would have been awesome. That's like what she does. She punches stuff for a living.
Exactly, yeah.
You know?
Exactly, yeah.
Why didn't that happen? Oh, man. Maybe that's the fight Kubo was alluding to.
It could be, yeah. Unless I'm mistaken or misremembering, it was revealed in one of the kind of supplementary books that she was defending. This the first invasion, but she was defending the medical barracks or something like that.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Maybe they'll show that. I'd love to get anything because characters like this appearing and then totally vanishing is such a bugbear of mine.
Yeah.
When there's just no reason for it.
There was, what was the one? Yeah, okay, so a couple episodes ago, when Nanao was there, I brought up that during Fake Karakura, she was the only high-ranking Shinigami that was not in Hueco Mundo or in Fake Karakura. So I just assumed that, like, Nanao was just given charge of the Seirete for, like, a day while everybody was out fighting in the battle with Aizen. So I guess that makes sense. And so in the case with Mashiro, yeah, I mean, she had to be doing something, but yeah, I guess she doesn't pop in after this. So she shows up, and this is a funny scene where we find out she's actually the super lieutenant of Squad 9, which is really funny considering a couple episodes ago we had the whole thing with Shunsui wanting 2 lieutenants, and Central 46 was just like, blah, 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 that's unorthodox, you can't have 2 lieutenants. And it's like, well, what about Mashiro? Oh no, she is the super lieutenant. That's a completely different rank. Yeah, so she's got a cool little badge there, and of course her whole thing is based off of like Japanese tokusatsu, like Kamen Rider and like Super Sentai and stuff like that, so it's a cool aesthetic for her.
And because the Vizard do so little in this arc, and because the Vizard captains don't use their masks anymore, and neither does Ichigo, hearing that distorted hollow voice is so nostalgic to me.
Yeah, and it's like, that's a question I hope is at least addressed. The best explanation I could always get from that is Yamamoto basically barred the Vizards from, like, you're not allowed to holify. You know, because you're captains. That's not how we do things. And even after he died, he kept their, they kept his wishes. Mashiro, I guess, doesn't give a shit. She's just like, nah, this is how I fight, you know?
I mean, it's possible that is why they are out in the sticks, out in the Rukongai, because maybe the law doesn't apply outside of Seirete.
Absolutely, yeah. Maybe they're just like, okay, we're not going to train in the Seirete when we do this. But yeah, so the big thing here, though, is Shuhei's Bankai, which is something that has been danced around this entire arc. And even Kubo even made fun of it in, like, the second to last chapter in the time skip forward when Rangiku's just like, oh, you haven't had a chance to use your Bankai. And Shuhei, I guess the implication is Shuhei did get his Bankai after the time skip, or maybe right here he got it. He just never had a chance to use it.
I believe he says in that chapter that he has actually mastered it now.
Yeah.
But no one's had a chance to see it,
So screw it. I'm going to bring it up here now. Shuhei's Bankai, it's a pretty cool one. It basically does a thing where it summons a giant ball of chain in front of him or above him, and it splits him and his enemy's Ryatsu in half. And essentially, like, it's like a death match from that point forward where they have equal amounts of Ryatsu. It's the same kind of thing that Magna did against Dante in Black Clover, if you've ever read that.
No, I haven't.
Well, okay, there you go. there's a fun fight in Black Clover for you. But it's a cool concept for a Bankai. Maybe we'll get to see it. It's in Brave Souls, and I think it's also the Can't Fear Your Own World.
That's where it was revealed.
Yeah.
I don't want to be too optimistic.
I'm an optimistic kind of guy, Tomo. I'm like, yeah.
I think there's a chance. Like, I don't want to go around being like, oh, we'll see every Bankai that we missed. But I think there is a chance. And the reason I say that is because they explicitly removed all mentions of Ishin's Bankai in Everything But the Rain.
Yeah.
Which makes me think we won't see that one. But the fact they kept this scene in feels very purposeful to me. Like, why would they include this? I mean, I could ask that about the original series.
Yeah, you could. I mean, yeah.
Why would they include it if they weren't going to show it?
In that context, you could say that maybe Kubo did have a plan for it, but stuff happened near the end, and he just couldn't fit it in. Now we have a second chance at this, a better planning phase, and it's like, okay, you brought this up, so, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Who would he use it against is the question.
That is a great question, because Hisagi basically spends this entire arc getting his ass kicked.
Oh god, yeah. Remember when they get to the Soul Palace and they're just running through and he just gets like no scoped by Lilia and then boom, that's it, out of the arc. Like done.
Kubo could have popped anyone with that. And he's like, Hisagi's had it really. He's like, Hisagi's had it really bad in this arc. Let's just finish it off like that as well.
He's kind of like the Yamcha of this arc, honestly. He really is. And it's sad, because Shuhei's a cool character, man. You know?
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Shuhei reminds me of like a D&D character. Like, you give this really cool design and this really cool backstory, but there's always like rolls ones on like everything he tries to do. Yeah. He's like, but he has this cool backstory. You got one shot by the Mind Flayer, man. I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. I'm like, okay, crap. Anyway,
it's funny because he obviously became really popular in Fate Karakura Town.
Yes,
and it feels like Kubo was like, I did not intend for that. Oh well.
Yep, I gave him the cool scar and the cool tattoo, but I didn't mean for him to be that cool. My God. But hey, hopefully we'll see more Shuhei here. I really hope he learns his Bankai. And then the fight begins, and Mashiro punches him in the stomach. That is going to do a lot of damage, considering how strong Mashiro is. Like, he's, oh God. Like, he's just doubled over in pain. This is how this is how Kensei trains, man. He doesn't screw around. Oh, very important line from Kensei here, though, that is very relevant, is that he says something along the lines of, I'm not soft like Tozen was. So here's the thing. Shuhei's, like, role model growing up was Kensei. All right, he like admired Kensei. He saved him when he from a hollow back and turned back the pendulum. But even despite the fact that Kensei is his legitimate hero, he's still like, hey man, that's going too far. You don't bad talk Tozen. All right, you don't know the kind of guy he was. Okay.
I've always had an issue with this scene.
Okay, go for it.
Just because, yes, like Tozen taught Hisagi so many of the lessons that he carries with him today. And I think that's absolutely fair enough. It's totally fair for Hisagi to feel still a connection to Tozen even after everything they went through. But for Hisagi to turn around and say to Kensei, you have no right to badmouth Tozen is lunacy to me. Because of everybody, Kensei has the most reason. Tozen was his subordinate, and he betrayed him and tried to kill him after subjecting him to this horrible holification experiment. And not only that, but Tozen eliminates almost the entirety of the 9th Division's leadership in Turn Back the Pendulum.
That did happen,
those are Kensei's friends, his allies. So for me, I mean, unless Kensei hasn't told Hisagi about all this sort of thing, he's not the most, emotionally connecting guy. So maybe
he isn't. Maybe Hisagi didn't know, but like, yeah, now that you think about it, considering Tozen and Kensei, like that whole thing, like that's how kind of the Turn Back the Pendulum kind of thing started, because Kensei and Mashiro were the first, they were the first visors to be created because of that. But yeah, when you really think about it, maybe, I mean, like Shuhei is a kind of guy that maybe he just still wants to always imagine that like Tozen in his final moments was like he kind of repented and he was a nice guy through and through.
Absolutely, yeah.
Maybe part of Shuhei still believes that like, oh, Tozen was just brainwashed by Aizen or something. You know what I mean? Like he was a good guy, and it's like, he murdered a lot of people. You know what I mean? He did a lot of messed up stuff.
Yeah, I think it's a symptom of the kind of moral grayness that Kubo loves to include, and I just think it's not as black and white as me saying, oh, Tozen was horrible, how can you say that? But, Hisagi spent so many years of his life with this guy at the end of the day. I can kind of see both sides, but it does kind of irk me a little bit.
You can also look at it from the perspective that, given that Tozen, his whole backstory with his friend that died and everything, which is also more expanded upon in Turn Back the Pendulum. There's so many Bleach properties. Can't Fear Your Own World in the light novel series. With all that being said, when Aizen approaches him and, tells him the plan and everything, and is just like, I'm going to, kill the Soul King. This is my master plan and everything. Tozen's probably like, yeah, sure. Because look at what, the Central 46 and the Shinigami and everything did to my friend. So
absolutely,
he kind of joined Aizen's plight for like what he deems as justice, and justice is a huge theme for Tozen. Gin joined simply because he wanted to eventually kill Aizen, and then Aizen was just in it to become God.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So there you go. Yep. So I guess out of the three, Tozen had the most, noble reason for joining, but still, he did some really messed up things in the process. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And that's honestly what's made Tozen always so compelling to me as well. He's definitely the most quote-unquote virtuous of the three.
Yes, absolutely. Easily.
But he's completely, obviously, misguided.
He's it's the same situation with, like, you're doing justice, but it's a misguided justice.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, no, you have no right to badmouth Tozen. We now cut to the Research and Development Division, 12th Division here. This is just a short little scene of Akon walking in. I love the scene here where, like, everyone's like, oh, Mr. Akon, you're up and walking around. And he's like, no, I have, like, 3 concussions. It hurts to move. But I gotta go into work today, so here we are.
Can't you see the massive bandage around my fractured skull?
My fractured skull. I got stabbed in the back by 4 daggers by a Sternritter that didn't even do shit at the end of the day. Oh, my God, yeah. R.I.P. Shaz. R.I.P. Shaz. First Sternritter kill for Ichigo, though. So, hey, there's that.
Yep, true.
Yep. So anyway, we just learn a little bit about what Mayori's up to. He notices that the creepy surveillance bugs that are all around the 12th Division are turned off, and he's like, what's going on here? Because the captain usually likes to, like, stalk everybody while he's in the lab. So is like, all right, I planted a secret camera in the captain's room because if your captain's Mayuri Kuretsuchi, you pretty much have to do that. Akon is risking his balls, by the way, by doing that.
Akon is I will always stand by Akon as being a totally underrated badass.
He is such a badass. I'm so happy he became the lieutenant in the new Breaths from Hell. And he has some cool abilities now because Akon's always been like just the level-headed kind of guy of like when he becomes captain of Squad 12, it's going to be run way more like streamlined. Still a little bit messed up, but mostly streamlined. You know.
Yeah, I like the idea that he is the foil to both Mayuri and Kisuke. They are both totally eccentric in their own way. He is so like gravelly stone-faced, but probably just as deranged as they are.
Yeah, but he's able to like hold that back. He's not as intelligent as Mayuri and Kisuke, clearly. No. There's sort of like more of the crazy mad scientist eccentric, as you said, but Akon is definitely more grounded, 100%. So apparently the camera he installed was like, I don't know, like, a potato cam from like 1992 or whatever, but they are able to kind of see some stuff with Mayuri going on. And actually in the manga, I think you hear a little bit of garbled noise, but not a lot. Here it's explained a little bit more. He's talking about the birth of a new Ashisoki Jizo. And it's also that thing on the table, I believe, is Izuru, correct?
I think so, based on, I think it's like 520.5.
Yeah, that weird middle chapter we got. Yeah.
Yeah, although from that particular shot you're on right now, that does not look like Izuru.
No, it doesn't. It looks like a giant blob that's like on the table. Because he was mentioning Ashisoki Jizo, which he does modify it later on, we'll see in the fight with Pernida. But yeah, in the side chapter, we also see he's working on creating zombie Izuru in the process.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting change to me because I'm pretty sure we'll still see the zombie Izuru later on.
Oh, anyway, absolutely. I just hope he does more stuff this time because one chapter, that was it.
Me too, but they have changed what Mayuri is saying here. In the chapter, it's something, all you can hear is he says something like, can you move yet?
Yeah, that was
obviously implies he's talking to, someone being resurrected. Here, it just seems like they are foreshadowing the eventual change to his Bankai, which in my opinion makes a lot more sense because it's a lot better payoff than the random Izuru return. So I'm all right with this sort of thing, but I do find it so funny, like you said, like they're the technology division, and that is the quality of Akon's
That's the quality. I mean, like, I also find it like you really feel bad for Izuru. Like, he had it rough when he was brought back. Like, he died. Mayuri resurrects him, but he doesn't even like plug up the hole in his chest. Yeah. He adds like 2 pieces of rebar, so you got to walk around. And I think Kubo even like explained it later. Like, no, he's in like constant pain in that state. Yeah. Like, he literally has a hole in his chest, and it's like, oh God, like, why Mayuri? Yeah. Just let the poor man go. Like, dear God. All right, next scene. Okay, so there is a weird part of this arc where Kubo just decides that Maurecchio's going to get a bunch of character development, and I'm like, all right, weird choice. I would prefer that would be with Chojiro or any other lieutenant, but okay, cool. Yep. So we see Maurecchio Omaida's house. His family, in case you don't know, is I mean, you know, but like the people out there, just as a setup. He's from a very like aristocratic, I don't think it's noble, but it's a very well-off family in the Seirete. His father, I think Marashin, was the former lieutenant under Yoroichi way back during Turn Back the Pendulum, and so he is now the lieutenant lieutenant there of the patrol corps of stealth corps and everything like that. So, you know, family's very well off. He has a bunch of siblings. This is Mario, who is the only sibling. The joke is they all look very similar to Marechio, except Mario. She's the one that looks completely different, but they are related. And, you know, it's just a cute little scene where Marechio's just sitting there kind of thinking about the captain, and then Mario's like, let's play. And he's like, no. And she starts crying, and he's like, okay, I'll play with you. That's fine. Whatever. And the point here is he thinks to Soifone, like, I guess you didn't take me with you, Captain. And then cut over to Soifone getting those gains. You know? Her thing is just, I'm just going to work out, like, 23 hours a day until the Quincy's invade again, which is fair for her, you know?
In the most inconvenient place possible.
Yeah. I mean, how does she get down from that? But, like, no. Yeah, she's cool. Now, she just, like, you know, like 1,000 push-ups one-handed, and she just pushes off and just lands on the ground. She's a ninja, you know? So her...
Captains...
go ahead. I'm just saying she's going to focus on mastering her Shunko. That's, like, her thing. Yeah, exactly. Of the captains who lose their Bankai, she is definitely the one who gets the least amount of time dedicated to that subplot, which I think is a little bit of a shame. I would have liked to have seen her doing a little bit more, especially since the completed Shunko turns out to be so cool. Yeah, it looks awesome. But I guess, I mean, to be honest, I'm not complaining too much because, as we'll see a bit later on, Komamura gets an amazingly cool subplot. Oh, absolutely, yeah. I love Komamura. Also, I have to just say, out of all the Shinigami that lost their Bankai, I mean, I don't really think Soifone gives as much of a shit as, like, Toshiro does. Toshiro's is, like, a huge deal for him. Soifone even admitted the first time she used her Bankai, like, I hate this thing. It's too big. It's too, like, encumbering. And arguably, she would be way more effective with just her, you know, Suze Mebachi, you know, 2 hits certain death ability. You know, just I read a comment somewhere that made me laugh, and it was something like, all the captains are devastated about losing their Bankai, apart from Soifone, who gave it up on purpose to get a new one. Honestly, and honestly, this might be what Soifone is doing anyway, even if her Bankai wasn't stolen. What's she going to do, practice with the missile launcher? She's probably just going to do this anyway. You know what I mean? So, honestly, and I brought this up, like, at the beginning when all the Shinigami used their Bankai, and not all of them, but, you know, the 4 that got stolen, I was thinking, like, you know what would have been smarter was for the Shinigami to say, like, okay, they clearly have something, they don't know if they could seal it or steal it, but they know they have something going on with their Bankai because of what Chojuro said. So wouldn't it be interesting for Soifone to be the one to be like, okay, I volunteered for I'll use my Bankai against them. If they seal it or steal it, doesn't matter. I don't really care. And then that'll, like, let everybody else know not to use your Bankai. But that's not how it went, obviously. But I don't think she cares. I don't think she cares. She's getting the gains. Okay. Now we get to Komamura's, and this is the coolest one, as you said. This is my favorite easily. So, as a setup for this, he enters this... there's a little bit more setup in the manga. Like, there's a cave on the edge of Rukon or whatever. Iba's actually outside training as well, and Komamura, like, came there with Iba, but then he went into the cave by himself, and Iba's just outside, like, lifting boulders or whatever, just training. So that's cut out. Iba gets one of his, like, 2 scenes in this arc. 2 scenes in the arc, so it's a good thing we cut that down to just 1. You want to just, you know... we'll only have the scene with Iba where he's the captain of Squad 7 at the end, and that'll be it. So... Komamura is a member of the Beast Clan. We don't find out a lot about them. Kubo's thing with the Seirete and everything is the Buddhist cycle of samsara, where there's 6 realms of Buddhism. There's a Hell realm, there's a Deva realm, which is, I believe, the Shinigami realm. There is a Hungry Ghost realm, which is obviously Hueco Mundo, and there is a Beast realm. And so because of that, in the cycle of samsara, it's like if you live your life through primal desires, you become an animal when you are reincarnated. So that's why there are animal people, furries, basically walking around the Seirete. So this is the giant Falcor dog, the Great Elder, who is Komamura's grandpa, his grandpappy, and he's come here to basically ask for some training in the ancient ways, essentially. So, what are your thoughts on this? Go ahead.
Yeah, I love this. I think it's such an awesome expansion of Komamura's character. Like you say, we don't find out that much, but it's enough, I think, to really pique the interest. And Komamura is so underrated. I'll always stand for Komamura as well. But I just think it's so awesome. And the Great Elder is depicted in such a cool way. His voice is so, like, world weary and ancient sounding, and he must be totally ancient as well. And the thing with Bleach is that its timeline is so fuzzy. Like when you go back,
yeah, everything is stretched out because of the lifespan of Shinigami are several thousand years. The Seirete and the Soul Society itself is like over 1 million years. I mean, those are absurd numbers.
Yeah, exactly. And when you go back as far back as even 500 to 1,000 years, it starts to get really blurry.
Oh, yeah.
So any time we see a character like the Great Elder, who presumably is a relic of those times, I'm so fascinated to see more from them. Because presumably he has been around for however long.
I get the impression he is several 100,000 years old because... Yeah. There's the line he has here where Sajin's coming to him and telling him, like, hey, I need training, give me the secret technique. He just laughs in his face because it's like he's been around for so long, and he tells Sajin, like, you were embarrassed by, you know, your appearance, so you hide with a bucket hat and everything. You dare make demands of me. Sajin says, I don't wear the helmet anymore. You know, people are different now. They've improved. And he just has this steadfast view of, like, things will never change. He's like, yes, they will. And he's like, things will never change. That gives you the impression he's been around for so long. He's had so many chances for, like, maybe it'll be different this time. Maybe it'll be different this time. And every single time, it just never was. So he just reached a point of, like, I'm just going to stay in this cave. I'm going to stay out of everyone's way. Do not upset the natural order of our clan. And that's what Sanji's attempting to do. So
yeah, they live in the shadows.
Exactly.
And
they have
you have to assume that the Elder, at least, has seen the world change hands countless times by this point. And so for us, Yhwach and the Quincy trying to basically annihilate everything is a huge deal. But he's like, it's been done. You know,
it's been done before. I've seen empires rise and fall. I don't care if the Quincy's take over. Our clan will be in the same state, whether or not the Shinigami or the Quincy's are in charge, basically is his viewpoint. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is so interesting.
And he also adds, he says, now, if you are going to try to change that, if you're going to force it, then I'm going to have to crush you right here. And because I don't want to die. He still wants to stay alive and stuff. So his viewpoint is like, yeah. So this is, I mean, it's a very dark story. I won't go through the whole thing here, but what Sajin basically has to do is asking a lot of him. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's not like some bullshit like Dragon Ball Z, like, all right, you gotta run on a road for like 1 million miles and you get stronger. No, it's a pretty big thing. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Despite the way Komamura gets treated a lot of the time, I've always been of the opinion, and maybe this is unpopular, I've always been of the opinion that Kubo actually really likes this character. And he's kind of had to lament the fact that Komamura is just not that popular. But you can kind of see it, I think, in the fact that he does dedicate this time to giving Komamura a really just emotionally involving and awesome story here. And like you said, we won't go into it too much, but what happens to him later, and it's as a result of what he has to do here with the Elder.
There is
crazy stuff.
There is a price, there is a toll that he has to pay, and he pays it. And there's consequences to that. Yes. And you know what? I've always liked Komamura. In fact, I remember a long time ago, somebody asked me the question, like, which captain of the Gotei would you most like to just hang out with at, like, a bar or something? And I'm like, you know what? Probably Komamura. Like, he's a pretty chill kind of guy, you know what I mean? He's pretty down to earth, honestly. Yeah. Kenpachi would just try to kill you. God, not Mayuri. I mean, Mayuri is one of my most favorite characters just because of how interesting his fights are, but, like, you do not want to hang out with that guy. No.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, the obvious choice has to be Kyoraku.
Yeah. No, Kyoraku, too, would be fun. He would be fun, too, yeah. He would just get drunk, like, wicked fast, and then you just be there.
Exactly,
like, All right, so we cut back to the Ho-Den, where we see the lower level of it. There's a cool little water slide at the bottom of... I love Nimaya, how he designed this place. It turns out great. So they water slide down. By the way, Asauchi's butt is right there, but, like, a really cool just artistic design for this cavern to be, like, rainbow colored for no reason. I love it, though.
I love that.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I think it adds a lot of... Because this is, at the end of the day, Oetsu's personal forge.
Yes,
so I think it adds a lot of his personality, and I think it's really cool.
I
think it's a bit weird, though, that earlier on in the episode, he says to Ichigo, come on up, and I will personally reforge it, and then they end up just going straight back down again.
Well, you know, Nimaya loves to screw around with Ichigo, so there's this really serious moment where Ichigo realizes who he is. He clasps hands with his Asauchi. They go back up, and then Nimaya's like, psych! And just pushes them back down, and they hit the tube, and then, what?
Yeah, I can totally see that.
Welcome to H2-Whoa, the ultimate water slide of the Hoden. So they land here into the forge. Now, I love this because it really gives a sense of, like, grandiose, almost like Roman, because there is kind of like a Roman sort of aesthetic with the Zero Squad, with like the Tenshuren and everything. Like, this is an epic arena where I reforge swords. This isn't your standard kind of like blacksmith forge or whatever. So
it's
he's
it's a totally unique location for the series as well, which is I always appreciate. It looks really cool.
Oh, absolutely. So we get introduced to, well, he says, you must say goodbye to Zangetsu here, which was the end of one of the chapters. I love the little cards in between here where it actually blots out the names. Because that's very clever, ominous of like what's going to happen here in a second. Like Zangetsu. Like, and also, awesome. This is a cool little piece of trivia Kubo talked about, I think, on Club Outside. So way, way, way back in the Substitute arc, when Ichigo first goes to meet Zangetsu in his inner world, he says, my name is... And somebody asked, like, was that, Ichibei, the name monk, blocking out the name? And Kubo said it was. Now, I don't know if that was a retcon, probably was, but, like... It's a pretty cool idea, Like, yeah.
That always felt like a retcon to me.
Oh, God, definitely. But
it is a cool one. And I think it's kind of scary as well, because it shows that the powers of the Zero Division must be virtually limitless.
Ichibei's powers are so metaphysical and crazy. It's absurd. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just love saying that word, metaphysical. I use it every time I'm talking about like really hard to understand powers. Okay, so we get introduced to the Sword Five here, and they're a neat little group of Nimaya's personal bodyguards. Okay, so here they are. We've already met Mera. I wrote down their names because I don't think we get all. No, yeah, we get their names. They do the little title cards for each one. So there's Mera Hyuchigashima, which means Kindling Island. So she's fire-based. The little girl with the pink hair is Nonomi Nomino. They all have alliteration for their names for the most part, which I really enjoy. Her name has the term for chisel in it. Tokie Tonokawa is the girl with the black hair, and her name means whetstone. Hasuka Hashihara is the one with the revealing dress with the blonde hair, and her name means chopsticks. She can turn her hair into like chopsticks to like hold a blade. And then there's Sumiko Tsuchimiya, which means like hammer wielding sin child, which I don't believe she's actually in this shot, or is she off to the side?
She is.
Did she fall down?
Like,
that's funny. I didn't even notice that. Like she fell down on her face. She's like Wednesday Addams, if you've seen that. If you've seen that.
I just love that the Sword Five, have this just clearly this entrance planned out, and she just completely falls over. That always made me laugh.
Yeah, it's hilarious, and it makes sense that they're all Zanpakutos. Obviously, they all have individual abilities that are meant to forge new Zanpakutos. I always thought that was a really cool kind of concept. And they all like beat the crap out of Nimaya in the process, and of course Ichigo. And I love the Asauchi is just this like vague representation of Ichigo's power made manifest in a physical form, and he's just like, What?
It is cool though, because even though that shot there is obviously like a jokey shot, it's a
I love this shot though. It's so cool. Yeah,
it's awesome seeing them side by side like that, because it is just a mirror image of Ichigo. And I think that's really cool.
You know what? I was going to make the thumbnail of this video the shot with Ichigo holding those two swords, because that's the coolest shot of the episode. I might just make the thumbnail this now, honestly. Like, this actually, I think, encapsulates the episode better.
It's like, a good one, yeah.
It works. So... he's like, hey, I said the show's starting, and I said everybody, that includes you too, Asauchi. And so he uses his magical forging powers, I guess, to turn the Asauchi down into its physical form, which is like the raw blade that he's now going to forge into a Zanpakuto. And then we begin the rock session. Okay, so gotta bring this up. In the manga, Nonomi, who is the little girl with the pink hair, we don't see her do anything during the entire shot. Like, her ability is just not shown. Here, it's the first one shown. Her ability means chisel. Her name implies what it is. So her hands turn into chisels, and she's the one that actually physically carves out the chimney for the forge. So I'm like,
I think that's so awesome.
Okay, good they included that. There you go.
That's the kind of tiny detail that they can
Yes.
just so easily slot in, and it is so great. I don't even really care about this character that much. But I'm
No,
like,
she doesn't do
I like that you
anything
did that.
else,
Yeah.
but it was weird how in the manga it's like, it's the Sword 5, and we see what every one of them can do
Yeah.
except for her. It's like, why is she there? For, like, moral support? Like, you can go ahead, Nimaya. Like,
Yeah.
so her ability is to make, and I also love the implication that every single time Nimaya has to forge a new Zanpakuto, they have to start from scratch with a whole new forge every single time, which makes sense because every Zanpakuto is so unique. So, yeah. So Nonomi makes the forge. Yeah, there she is. And then we have Mera, who is very popular right now in the waifu charts. She's ranking pretty high. Her stock is
really?
up if you want to invest in Mera stock. There you go.
Right.
Yeah. She ignites the forge with her ability. And then Nonomi also makes this little section over here. Tokie comes over.
Basin.
Yeah, makes the basin for the whetstone. So literally her tears. I mean, there's an entire ocean around them right now, but I guess her tears are special. Yeah. She cries in that, and she's complaining.
I think I mentioned it in my reaction to this episode, but it makes me laugh a little bit that Toki's existence is just to be perpetually miserable, or else Oetsu can't get a sword out of her.
Yeah, it's literally just like, I'm gonna make, because literally the implication is Nimaya made all of the Sword 5 because he forges every Zanpakuto. So he literally forged, I'm gonna add as much sadness into this one as possible because I need to have a whetstone at every given moment. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we have Hasuka, who is my personal favorite. I can't really tell you any particular reason why. Anyway, she uses her hair as chopsticks to basically grab the sword and like move it around in the forge, so you don't get burned or whatever. And then finally you have Sumiko, who is a rather disturbing ability. She rips out her own teeth, and she can, like, mold it into a mallet. I think her name is Zanpakuto, is like the hammer-wielding Sin Child or something like that. And she pulls out a hammer for the forge, hands it to Nimaya. Nimaya pulls back his top knot, takes off his shades, and he looks pretty damn serious here. And he's just like, he's clocking into work is what he's doing. You know? Yeah.
And no, that's such an awesome change. Just those small visual tweaks, and Nimaya looks like almost a totally different person.
I love
think
it,
it's really awesome. The Sumiko, that character, I have never understood her. I don't understand.
Are you
supposed
to?
Missing something?
Yeah.
I don't know why it's her teeth that make the hammer. Maybe I don't know if her entire body can just be broken off to make hammers whenever Oetsu wants.
It's the hammer spawning ability. Like, you activate the Shikai, and it doesn't turn into a hammer. It throws hammers like the Hammer Brothers from Mario.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, that's her ability. Yeah. But yeah, they're all really cool. I mean, if I'm going to be optimistic here, it'd be cool to see more of them, but we probably
I always
won't.
expected to see them again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, especially when the invasion of the Soul Palace happens. I mean, I don't know, they could show up and do something there, I guess, you know?
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, I know they are made to forge blades, but using the battle situation
I feel like
as well.
they should be, like, Nimaya kind of just by his ability has, like, mastery over every Zanpakuto. But the thing is, like, these are the 5 that are his personal bodyguards. Now, he uses Sayafuse when he fights against Askin way later on, but that's like one sword he used. Oh, God, I can't wait for... Askin's my favorite Stern Ritter, dude. I love that guy.
Yep, me too.
I remember I did a whole memorial to that guy, and it was just, like, I love that character. Anyway, he's like a cooler, like, less God, centric Aizen, and I love it. Anyway, but yeah, he only uses one Zanpakuto against the Zero Squad, as the Zero Squad against the Royal Guard of the Stern Ritter, and I'm like, man, like, you have 5 of these swords. I thought that was going to be where this was going to go. He was going to dual wield like Hasuka and Sumiko or something. I don't know, something like that. Yeah, but
yeah, I thought that was going to happen as well.
We'll see. Maybe it will. So he begins to forge.
I was just going to say, at the end of the day, what I want to be expanded on most is that fight. So I'm hoping 100%. That. Yeah, I'm hoping that's exactly the sort of thing.
I feel the fights between the Zero Squad and the Royal Guard of the personal guard of Yuha was just they had a good start, and at a certain point it just gets like, oh, okay, they're just gonna get kind of like dominated. All right, I see.
That fight is so weird because I know we get a bit off topic, so I'll make it quick.
Go ahead. No, that's what you're on the Techie 101. Well, you're on the BAN-KAST YouTube channel now, Tommo. So tangents are what we do. Go ahead.
That fight is so weird because it's all great build-up and no fight.
Yeah.
There's basically like no fight to it. It's all awesome stuff where the Royal Guard, they set up their amazing Cage of Life and their fake palace and everything.
I
It's
love
like,
the
this is
fake
awesome.
palace because the fake palace was like, oh, you think they're going to get dominated. Oh, that was just all within their plans. And then they get dominated anyway.
Yeah,
so
exactly. In the space of about 2 chapters, they go from being on top of the world to they're all dead.
It also still annoys me to this day that the only Zanpakuto release we got was Ichibei's and Korinji's, and that was it. And Korinji was just a Shikai. And we didn't even see what a Shikai could do.
Exactly, yep.
It glows. It's a nightlight. There you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he begins the forge here. I actually really love this shot where he's like, "What are you thinking, Goichi?" He's just flipping the syllables of Ichigo's name, and Ichigo's like, I'm thinking, why did you take off your shades? And he's like, hey, you idiot! If I left my shades on, I wouldn't be able to see the color of the flame, indicating that he's an expert with this. He's really kind of eccentric and weird and like a rock star and all that, but he knows how to forge a Zanpakuto. Damn it! All right, this is what he does. Okay.
I really appreciate that Kubo made him all business when it came to this moment, because it's a megaton, massive, important moments. And we've had all of Nemaya's jokey sections, so like now's the time for him to, pull it together, basically.
For an arc that a lot of the comedy elements were removed, I'm glad they kept most of the stuff with Nemaya for his character, and then when you have the shift to him in business mode, then it's all the more like impactful there.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
So this is the moment where we begin to address an elephant in the room that I remember was like, when Yuha first appeared in the manga, I remember getting comments way back in the day that were like, he looks exactly like Zangetsu. And I remember thinking like, nah, that has nothing to do with anything.
Me too.
That was probably just like Kubo's design, whatever. No, that actually is relevant.
Yeah. People were really unhappy, if I remember rightly. They were saying...
were? I don't remember that.
They were saying that, well, just when Yuha first appeared, saying like, oh, Kubo's run out of character design.
Oh, that.
Yeah,
okay.
exactly
All right.
like
From
Zangetsu.
that perspective. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, that's... And it's just so funny that Kubo was one up the whole time. Like there was a reason for it. I absolutely love that.
So he brings up like, hey, the Asauchi you have, it looks a lot like your hollow, right? And Ichigo's like, yeah, it looks exactly like my hollow. It looks exactly like the hollow that attacked, Isshin and Masaki way back in the day. And it's like, yeah, that's right, because that Asauchi, your Zanpakuto, is the hollow that's within you. And then that begs the question, like, wait a second. If the hollow is the Zanpakuto, then who's the dude that's been inside my soul the entire time? Who's old man Zangetsu? And Nemaya tells him, he's like, yeah, that's actually, because the implication is the Squad Zero they're aware of Yuha. Like, when Nemaya runs across him later, he's like, it's been a while, YH, or whatever. Yeah, so they know all about that. And I guess because of his ability, he's able to, like, Nemaya's ability, he can pretty much see the inside of, like, the souls of Shinigami, because the Zanpakuto worlds and all that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, I was under the implication he could go, well, not necessarily visit them, but he can at least see.
He's aware of their existence because he's the one that makes the damn sword. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like, yeah, you already know that the guy hanging out in your soul is pretending to be your Zanpakuto. And this was a huge twist. Like, I remember reading this back in the day, and I'm like, wow. Also, how do you feel about the redesign of the inner world?
Well, firstly, I just want to talk about you saying this was a huge twist. I did a video not too long ago, kind of just trying to rank what I felt were the biggest plot twists in Bleach. As far as I'm concerned, this is the biggest plot twist outside of Aizen being alive and being a bad guy.
Oh, wow, that's high rank for you then. Wow.
Yeah, I think this. I mean, it changes everything.
It does.
We know about Ichigo. Ichigo thought he knew about himself. It's absolutely crazy stuff. As for the inner world, I really like that it's pink. I think it's great. Personally, I don't think there's too deep a meaning to it. I think it is just supposed to be a callback to the opening, or on the flip side, the anime opening has always been leading to this moment, which is why I think they have that bold pink. It was bold to use it in the intro, and it's even bolder to use it here, but I'm a big fan of it. And I feel like it is a symbol because of, obviously we've been seeing that intro week in, week out now for 12 weeks. And especially if you're an anime-only viewer, you don't know that everything has been leading to this. Basically, this is the final big hurdle before the season ends. And I think it's really fitting for them to kind of go back to the opening for this visually.
It's sort of like, oh, they were doing the thing with the opening, and now, oh, it all connects back. And
exactly, yeah.
Somebody actually told me, like in one of the first few episodes, that this specific color of pink is called like wild strawberry, which is the reason why they selected it for this, because Ichigo's name literally means strawberry in Japanese, one of the ways you can read it. So, yeah, and the original in Bleach Gen 1, it's just a blue sky. I think this works a lot better because it is Ichigo's inner world. So, like, this is his color that represents him. So, there you go.
Plus, it just looks a lot more dynamic. It's way more interesting like this, I think.
It looks way more of like this... I'm gonna use the word again, metaphysical inner world that exists within all Shinigami. It makes sense that it would not look exactly like just like a blue sky, because like the rules of our world don't apply to this place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, exactly.
Something else relevant is that Ichigo's inner world changes depending on his personality and his like mental state and what he wants to do and everything like that. Last time I think we saw it was in the Fake Karakura Town arc, when it was actually just a small town underwater, because that reflected Ichigo's current state of mind there. Now it's back being the skyscrapers. The skyscrapers literally represent Ichigo wanting to achieve greater heights and his ambition and stuff like that. So it's a really cool idea that it fluctuates and changes depending on Ichigo's like goals. If he becomes depressed or filled with like malaise or becomes dejected, it will change as well, as we're going to see in a second here.
Absolutely.
So, yes, this is the original Old Man Zangetsu that we all know and love from way back in the day. And Nimaiya states, and Nimaiya's kind of speaking to Ichigo like in his inner world. He's like, this is Yuha from 1,000 years ago. He doesn't represent your Zanpakuto powers. He represents your Shinigami powers. He represents your Quincy powers. And Ichigo, I love this scene where he's like, I've been trying not to think about it, but how the hell did I know that this guy, Yuha, was the main enemy? How did I know exactly where he was? Like I immediately knew, like, this is the guy. That's the leader of the Quincy's, right? And it's like he just kind of pushed it in the back of his mind, like, how did I know that? The reason was because he is a Quincy as well.
Yeah, and he says, like, when I first laid eyes on him, he immediately reminded me of someone else I knew. And all that sort of thing is so good. And I just love the way the anime approaches this, the way the camera, you don't see Ichigo's face until it slowly pans to the front. And he has that look of utter disgust on his face.
See if I could, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's one of the best faces Kubo has ever drawn in the original chapter.
Oh, in the manga, this was the highlight. Man. Like, every chapter, there's one page that's, like, Kubo focused a lot on, and that was this face in that chapter. I think 541. I mean, that whole chapter was pretty much just Ichigo realizing the truth, and this is his reaction to it. Yeah. Of just, like, partly, like, sadness, but also, like, confusion and a little bit of anger and a little bit of, like, I don't even know, man. Like, a lot of emotions mixed into Ichigo right here.
I mean, Ichigo obviously goes through an awful lot in the story of Bleach.
God, yes.
And so Kubo has had to kind of come up with inventive different ways of showing a shocked, horrified face of Ichigo over the years. This one is different, I think. It is wordless. There is a sadness to this where Ichigo is just, like, unable to even get it together that what he thinks he knew is a lie. And I think it's just awesome stuff.
It's that look, that 1,000-yard stare of everything you thought you knew about your life is now crumbling apart into 1,000 pieces.
Exactly.
It's just like, and it's funny because we just had a scene where Ichigo learned a lot. Like, he felt like he had a handle on everything. Like, okay, I now know about my dad, I know about my mom, I know about the past and everything, and now this gets dropped on him. It's like, God damn it. Why can't I just be a normal kid at this point?
It's kind of funny you mentioned that, actually, because I was thinking about this. It's kind of weird in a sense that Everything But the Rain, obviously, it starts with Ichigo being in a terrible place mentally. He desperately needs to know about where he came from. And the rain is a motif used throughout the series a lot to depict that sort of thing. We go through all of that and come out the other side, and the clouds are gone, the sky is clear, and that's supposed to show that Ichigo is feeling better about himself.
Here comes the rain again.
And suddenly it rains again,
It's symbolic, Tomo. Like, there's never a moment where the clouds are not gone forever. There's always going to be a moment where the clouds come back. All right.
It just makes me laugh that in the context of the anime, it's like mere minutes later.
It's like, okay, Dad, I've learned about my past. I'm ready to make I'm ready to make a Zanpakuto. I know all about myself now. I'm confident. By the way, Zanpakuto, your Zangetsu's not really your Zanpakuto. What?
Oh, God, no.
What? But he was so cool. He had the cool jacket and the shades. I trusted him. So he goes into Izen World and he's just like, "Hey, Zangetsu, what's going on? He's lying, right?" And Zangetsu's like, "Nope, it's just as you've heard." It's like
Yeah.
what? I am not Zangetsu. Oh god. Okay. And now this is when the entire building begins to break apart because everything that
Yep.
Ichigo ever knew about, like the partner he's been fighting with, is just like, I'm not really Zangetsu. I'm like, shit. So yeah, that happens.
I think that's again, that's just so cool. Seeing
Oh
the
yeah.
building just break like that is such a great way of being like, Ichigo is hurting pretty bad right now.
And then he dives under the water like he was at the
Yep.
beginning of, well, back in the fake Karakura, same kind of thing there. So the question now is, okay, is Zangetsu Yuha? Is he like controlled by Yuha? How does this work? And I really love, I mean, this is so cool how Kubo depicted this. So the idea is that, yes, at the beginning, at the core of his powers, that he is Yuha. And Zangetsu goes on this really long monologue where he explains, like, well, Ichigo's like, "Are you my ally? Are you my enemy? What are you?" And he's like, kind of like at the beginning, I was your ally, but I wanted to make sure you didn't get into battles, because if you got into battles, you could die, and I live in you. I'm part of you, so I don't want you to die. So I restricted your Shinigami abilities, essentially. There was only a small part I couldn't contain that you ended up using, okay? And you know, it's because I'm a Quincy, the idea of you becoming a Shinigami and fighting alongside Shinigami, that's against my very nature. However, since this is not Yuha, this is Zangetsu inside of Ichigo, learning about Ichigo, everything Ichigo knows, Zangetsu knows pretty much, I would assume, over the years, he begins to learn about the person Ichigo is and who he wants to become and what he wants to do. And he's a very, you know, true blue kind of individual. He just wants to, you know, protect his friends and everything like that. And it basically changed his mind on it. And he's like, I became your ally. I am somebody that is now wants to help you. And I'm okay stepping aside and handing you my power. Kind of brushed through a lot of that there, but what's your take?
My take is that this was a very dangerous twist for Kubo to attempt, because Ichigo's relationship with Zangetsu is one of the biggest bedrocks of Bleach, and it's something that people have come to know and love. And to upend that completely, I think really risks upsetting people. And I think it's a testament to Kubo's ability that it works as well as it does, and it actually really does pay off. Like you said, everything about what Zangetsu says makes total sense. He comes from Yuha. There's no dancing around that. There's no getting away from that. That's the reality they have to both face together. But it doesn't mean that Zangetsu has to be evil or has to.
Yeah, kind of a weird way to
Ichigo.
spin the nature versus nurture argument right there. But yeah, I mean, kind of,
Exactly, exactly. So I think it worked really, really well. And I just love this kind of notion that all this time he's been holding Ichigo back, but he's slowly, ever so slowly, been letting him go. And you have to imagine in the fake Karakura Town arc, when he allowed him to learn the final Getsuga Tensho, that was a pretty major moment of realizing Ichigo is all about selfless sacrifice, and that if he continues to hold him back here, you know, Karakura Town is going to be gone. And what will that do for Ichigo's mental state? Well, it'll completely destroy him.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big milestone moment of Zangetsu giving Ichigo more leeway, giving him more power, to the point where Ichigo loses his power, which is obviously a big thing for Zangetsu as well, since he is a big part of that.
And since you brought it up with the fake Karakura, I mean, that's also kind of a hint there where Zangetsu merges with the Hollow, and that's a representation of his full abilities. I would say it's a little weird that if this Zangetsu is not really Shinigami powers, why did he change forms when Ichigo went into Tensa Zangetsu? Why did he get younger? That doesn't make much sense. But like aside from that, that's really the only thing I really have to like mention, like a nitpick. But
the only other one I have, there's one tiny little nitpick, and that is when Ichigo says after this, he flashes back to the fight with Zaraki in Soul Society.
With the shadow. Arc. Yeah.
And he says, you lent me Quincy power when I needed it the most to win. But in that chapter, the torrent of Reiatsu that appears behind him takes the form of his hollow mask.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, other than that, I think it all works.
So, I don't know. Maybe Kubo had this idea from the beginning, but maybe he, you know, was debating a couple of times on exactly how he was going to depict it. So,
I think so.
Yeah. I don't think this was a retcon 100%. I don't think this was something that Kubo just came up with. Like, what if Zangetsu was actually... No, I think he had the general vibe. Yeah. It's just that maybe some of the ways he depicted it didn't... They fell short. But it's...
I agree. And Hollow Ichigo explicitly saying "I am Zangetsu" over and over again.
Oh
in
yeah,
the Ankar arc is a pretty big indicator.
that's
that
a pretty
Kubo
big
had an
clear
idea
one
of what he
right
was
there. I
doing.
mean, you don't need to get more like yeah. Oh my goodness, yeah.
But
So
I mean, I love this. Obviously, him
this is an awesome
throwing
shot
open
too.
his cape,
I love
revealing
how
the kind of Quincy-esque undershirt as well. I love that.
I love how everything is black and white, but the core
Hmm.
of the power of the sword is a bright blue.
Yeah.
That's really neat. Yeah. So yeah, very emotional scene, and they have a talk, and it's like, hey, look, I'm okay stepping aside, and if you chose the path of a Soul Reaper, then you know I'm okay with that. That's fine. I wasn't at first, but you showed me that my heart has wavered, and that's very emotional. Basically,
Yeah.
Ichigo has taken a fragment of Yuha and made it like sympathetic to his cause, which is probably not an easy thing to do given Yuha's personality. But
I
here
think
we
that's
are.
awesome, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's cool as well because it almost goes hand in hand with how Ichigo changed the Gote and the Soul Society
Mm-hmm.
and their way of thinking. So it's kind of like that was the exterior change he was able to cause and create. And what we're seeing now with Zangetsu is everything that happened on the inside,
On the interior, yeah, that's
which is
perfect.
great. Yeah.
And I love this shot with Zangetsu literally like almost like does Zangetsu think at this point that like okay, I'm done. I'm not going to be Ichigo's powers anymore. He's chosen Shinigami abilities whereas Ichigo,
I would assume so.
yeah, because he's like I accept this. I'm going to die now basically because you have become a Shinigami. But Ichigo, and this all kind of ties in where Ichigo says, you know what, you're both Zangetsus to me. You are both my power, and at the end of the day, the blade is me. So we're all the same person working together here. It's not you're my
Yeah.
partner or you're my tool to use. You are me, okay?
Yep.
You make
It's the
me me.
only way this could have ended satisfyingly, I think, is for Ichigo to, yes, go through all of this, but for Zangetsu to open his heart to him, reveal the truth to him, and Ichigo is just like, you know what? Regardless of what you say to me now, it doesn't change the fact that we've been through everything together. It doesn't change who you are to me. It doesn't change who White is to me. And you're both Zangetsu. And I think that's absolutely the best way to go about it. And it puts Ichigo in the most clear-headed of ways.
He's very clear-headed, very like have a high level of maturity at this point for Ichigo to arrive at that conclusion. I mean, he's only 17 years old and he's having like these massive existential crises, and he's just like, you know what? You guys are the part of my soul. And I'm like, wow, okay, pretty good. All right,
Exactly,
go
yeah,
for Ichigo
exactly.
there. So he has a little bit of a freak out anxiety attack, but he kind of settles down pretty quickly. So yeah, at this point though, it does seem like Zangetsu is leaving like forever. And then Ichigo grabs the power, and then we cue to the ending credits as this is happening. Probably the coolest scene of the first core.
Yeah,
God,
awesome.
I remember when this chapter came out, dude. It was so insane. Like everyone was
It
losing
was
their shit over
amazing.
this. Touches the sword.
And of course, they're playing number one as well.
Oh yeah, then they're playing number one, which was conspicuously absent for most of the first part. And they played it in the trailer, and it's like a new version. And I'm like, oh man, can't wait for number one. And didn't they play it in the first episode when they fought against the Hollows? And then I think that was the only time.
I think it was.
Yeah.
Which,
So it's a bookend. There you go. Nice.
exactly. Yeah. And it does kind of work for me as well because number one is very triumphant and there is nothing to be happy about in the first invasion.
Yeah, here we go. Here's the shot you were talking about with his fight with Kenpachi. And he's like, you let me the Quincy's power. But yeah, he did. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. So, oh, that's an awesome shot right there. With that's actually on the volume cover for volume 61.
That's right,
Zangetsu falling down. And by the way, I was just like, I'm calling him Zangetsu. I've been calling him Zangetsu the entire time. I'm not going to be like Yuha Bach and now the Hollow is Zangetsu. It's just they're both Zangetsu. I love how Ichigo says, yeah, you're both Zangetsu. I'm keeping this simple. Okay.
Exactly. It's almost like a meta thing that Kubo planned. Kubo was thinking, oh, the readers will still call him Zangetsu. It's all good.
Yeah, it's exactly. That's kind of the whole message. And then there's finally Hollow Ichigo, who hasn't really shown up much since he got his powers back. He hasn't really shown up at all since he got his powers back. So I was always wondering, like, what's up with this guy? And it's like, now we know. All right.
I really wish he said even something during this scene, I think.
It is a little weird.
But there is something also really oddly emotional about that shot there where he just kind of, he's no longer that demonic force. He just has a look of pride on his face, I think, more than anything.
Yeah, and it's like, it's all because, like, Ichigo did not make a Zanpakuto the proper way, and maybe that was, like, the imbalance in the soul, because, like I said, this guy at one point was just like, I'm gonna straight up kill you, Ichigo. He's like Freddy Krueger or something, And now he's just like, no, we're cool. We work together, Yeah. So, probably him being just quietly prideful and stoic is kind of like the most opposite we've seen from the angered soul has been calmed or something like that.
Absolutely.
To look at it. So Ichigo is now in the forge, And Nemaya's like, okay, pull him out. And, he's like, oh, what are you doing? Your hands are going to burn if you put them right into the fire. And she goes like, nah, I got this.
Yeah.
Boosh. And it evaporates the whole damn ocean. Yeah. Love that shot. That's so cool.
What really makes this scene for me as well is that when Ichigo hefts his blades out of the flame, Oetsu's voice actor just screams, "This is your Zanpakuto!" at the top of his voice. And Ichigo roars, and the whole thing is just this massive victory lap.
I can't wait. Have you been watching do you watch the English dub of these?
I don't actually. Only the sub at the moment.
Okay,
I don't think the dub's finished yet, is it?
No, so the dub is up to episode 9.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah, they're actually releasing them fairly quickly. They have Johnny Young Bosch back as Ichigo, and he does an amazing job.
That's awesome.
And so but the voice acting in this was absurd. It was really good. So he evaporates the entire ocean just because of how powerful he is. The Sword Five are like, wait, has this ever happened before? And like, nope, it hasn't happened. They're like, all right. Is like, which you gotta think about I don't know if that's a line in the anime or it was definitely in the manga where the Sword Five are like, has that ever happened before? And they say no.
It's the other way around. It was actually cut out of the episode, but it is in the chapter.
It's in the chapter, right? So you gotta think about every single Zanpakuto that this man has forged. Ryujin Jaka, Senbon Sakura, every single one. Ichigo's was the first one to do this. All right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's insane.
Yep. So, it's such a cool statement as to how powerful he actually is.
We see the shot. Ichigo's dual-bladed Zanpakutos, his dual Zangetsus, and the moment where he kind of looks down at them. And, 2 Zanpakutos, right? And that's only... Hey, he's in a special club right now because you only got Shunsui and Ukitake. And even Ukitake technically doesn't count because it's connected by a cord. So, and Kazeshini, the same thing with the chain. So... Shunsui and Ichigo are on the same level. I think that's fair. Yeah, sure.
I appreciate Oetsu's new line there. That's not in the chapter where he says they were both real.
Oh!
It's just like reaffirming that, yes,
okay,
no one actually lied to you. Both of these guys are your power. They always have been, and they always will be. And now it's represented in both these blades. I think that's really cool. I want to see
the shot here where there we go. I love that shot right there.
Where so good.
So the idea, at least the idea that I had the first time reading this and now watching it, is that one sword is the longer sword is Shinigami power, the shorter blade is Quincy power.
That's exactly right.
Vice versa. I don't know, but yeah, that's the way I interpreted it.
Well, that's how I always interpret it as well, and this episode confirms that because we see the small blade turn into the blue Reiatsu, and then the larger one turns into the red one.
Which is something that's like it's not very clear in the manga because like the colors and everything. Yeah. But yeah, so that's an awesome scene. I think the only time we get to see Hollow Ichigo in his full form in the manga, like how we used to see him, is in this chapter.
It is,
with the white Shihakusho with the black band. Yeah. Oh my god!
Honestly, if the Hell arc ever does actually kind of happen and carry on, one of the small things I would love from it is just an inner world scene where Ichigo talks to these guys again, and we get closure's not the right word because this is closure.
It's ongoing. You know what I mean?
Some kind of an update.
Kind of like how have you read Naruto?
Yes. Yeah.
Kind of like how, like in Naruto, where after Naruto and Kurama kind of become, with terms, they just kind of like chill out and talk every once in a while.
Yeah, I think that was really missing.
Yeah, that's so really cool. And also, I mean, in the Hell arc, just to bring it up, I mean, Ichigo's back to using just his regular Shikai again, and I think Kubo addressed that, and he's just like, he could basically kind of choose whatever he wants. If he wants 2 swords, he can. Much. If he wants to make it his original, he can, because once again, they're both Zangetsu. He can kind of make the form whatever he wants.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there you go. And so that's the end of the episode. He realizes that they are both his Zangetsu. Thank you, Zangetsu. You are me, which is that title and those words are so relevant because up until this point in the story, it's like the idea was that a Zanpakuto was like this separate entity, this separate spirit that lives with you in tandem and are like your partners and you're fighting together. Yep. In some cases, romantic partners, like with Shunsui and his Zanpakuto, I was like Katen Kyokatsu, and it's like, it's like your comrades in war or your best friends, or your lovers or something. No, the true essence of a Zanpakuto is it is your soul that is just fragmented off, and maybe your subconscious or whatever, and that's what it is.
Yeah, and I think that's perfectly conveyed here. Like you can only attain your true power, your true potential when you stop asking it for help, when you stop fighting and pushing back against it, because at the end of the day there is no other being. It's wrong to think of it like that. Yeah, exactly.
It's just different sides of your personality. That's all it is. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Perfect. So I think this is again handled extraordinarily well.
So we do have an ending scene, and this was actually a shot that was... This actually was after everything but the rain. Right after Ichigo gets back to the world of the living, we have this shot where... And it was finally... And you know what? We didn't get that many extra scenes with Uryu, but those little scenes with him went a long way, I'll tell you.
It really did.
Just the bridge to see where we got from Uryu in the world of the living and then joining like the Third Reich. You know what I mean? Like we got a bridge there. Okay. So
I love it, and that's all I ever really wanted as well. Was just a couple of scenes, and delivered. Yep.
At the end of the last episode, at episode 12, we saw Uryu next to Hashwolf, and he was in the rain, and it was very somber and sad. And then Hashwolf picks him up, and now they go back to the palace, the Silburn, and we see Hashwolf there, and then Uryu walks in, and yes, he's wearing the garment, and he's made his decision to become a member of the Vandenreich, the Sternritter, and then boom. I mean, let us fight
extremely
together.
Cool.
Extremely cool
looks
shot.
Really awesome.
I love that shot. That's so neat. Yeah.
I think this lighting thing they've got going on for the Silburn is great.
Yuha knows a lot about interior lighting and interior decoration. You know what I mean? He's
how
got
to get the most out of your evil palace.
It's minimalistic, but he definitely is he's the boss there. Did we get a poem at the end of this one? No, we don't. We don't get a poem. We just get the final shot of Ichigo. So, I'll just leave it on that because that's the coolest shot of the episode next to Uryu.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. So, because I actually got a little confused because the shot with Uryu walking out with the uniform the first time we see him, that was 542. After the events of Ichigo pulling out the blades, the next shot is them actually rallying all the Quincy's together, like Yuha making the announcement that Uryu is now part of them.
That's right.
That's the next shot that'll be coming up. But that won't be until July.
Exactly, yeah. And that's why a part of me was thinking that this particular cliffhanger might just be cut entirely, because now, it does mean that we will go straight from this into 543, which is just another Uryu reveal.
It's just another Uryu reveal. Which makes sense, though, because it's like it's been 7 months. It's like, oh, yeah, reminding you, Uryu is now a member of the Vandenreich. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Yeah, so that's part 1 of Bleach. That's the mid-season finale or whatever. How many cores do you think they're going to be? They're just 2, or is there going to be a third
I think they said there's 4 in total.
There's 4 of them. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'll be roughly 13 episodes apiece, I think.
Okay. Well, we can kind of math this. I suck at math, but this is 542, so that's like 580 is when 480 is when it started. So that's like 60 chapters per season, I guess. So I guess the next one would end out around 600. That could work because that's when they get to the Soul Palace. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. My own prediction was that Core 2 will end with Yhwach killing the Soul King.
That would be a good place to do it. Yeah.
It would be, but it also feels like that doesn't leave a lot of room for 2 more seasons.
That's what I mean.
Afterwards.
Like because then after 600 would be 60 more chapters. That would be like the end of the series exactly almost. So that 3 cores would make sense unless they add a lot of extra stuff, or we have Renji and Rukia's wedding at the end of it. I don't know. Like
I would adore stuff.
I would love that stuff too. Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe that is what they're intending, because the numbers really don't add up when you look at it from that perspective unless they add a lot of stuff in these upcoming cores.
I think they said that. So I think this is only me paraphrasing what I'm remembering, but I think they said that, so far this one is mostly unchanged, and it will be from this next core where they start to add a little bit more here and there. Kubo's already talking about actual new fights and stuff like that. So it's possible this next part won't end with Yhwach killing the Soul King, although I kind of think it will, personally.
It does make sense what you said, though, and it goes back to what you said earlier, that, like, this first part, I mean, there's a couple of things, like Uryu not showing up as the bridge to, like, these scenes is the perfect example, but for the most part, this first part of the series, of the arc, it works good. It's fine. It's like, that's the part you could see Kubo put a lot of thought and energy into. It was like how he was going to structure this exactly. A couple of things fell by the wayside, but not too many. Moving on from this point onward, and especially after chapter, like, 600, things become a little bit more unstable, and, like, this could have been done a little better, and I think then we're going to see some changes. That's where all the changes really need to happen, honestly.
I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, I love the Thousand Year Blood War arc, and I'll always say that. I think it's a great arc. I think it's the most ambitious Bleach arc as well.
Definitely.
Which goes a long way. But there's no escaping the fact that kind of, yeah, after they sort of start reaching the Soul King Palace, it starts to get a little bit weird.
Absolutely. But we'll get there when we get there, I guess. That's the end. Thanks to MrTommo for coming on. You were a hotly requested individual for this episode, so thanks to you making a great finale.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I really, really appreciate it.
You could go ahead and do your wrap-up routine if you have, like, where are you at, what do you do, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I'm just really on here on YouTube as MrTommo2304, talking about Bleach every single week because it's like my favorite series ever. So, but yeah, again, Tekking, thank you. I really, really
no
appreciate
problem.
having me on.
And I'll maybe because I want to have a lot of guests on here, and I have some other ones lined up already for Core 2 when it comes out eventually. So if you can want to be on at some point again, maybe we can make that work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Also. Before we head out, I just wanted to say to because I had to start a new channel. I don't know if you knew that with this.
I saw, yeah.
Yeah, because YouTube's algorithm doesn't really like the fact that I'm doing One Piece and Bleach, and it was really causing the numbers to not work out too well.
Yeah, that sucks.
So it sucks because you have to start a new channel for pretty much every topic. But anyway, I wanted to thank everybody because the BAN-KAST channel has only been up for a week and it already has over 10,000 subscribers. The views are doing good on the new episode that came out, and this will be up on that. So I think we'll be good by I should have done this like at the beginning, but hey, here's at the end of part 1, so it's fine, it's okay. And there'll be some other Bleach content up on the channel before the next Core to keep you satisfied. All right, thanks for watching, everybody.